I know you've talked a lot about the fight. There's this stipulation that things have to get sorted in the next 28 days, but the world is still skeptical about this fight even taking place this summer. I know you've come out and said some things that, we are planning for the summer, but is there a chance that this fight may just fall in the winter?
I don't think so. I mean, look, it all depends on how happy the fighters are. We've already had some big offers. We know that, of course, people would prefer probably to wait a little bit, and get the world back in order. I mean, the obstacle is deciding where we want to go. So, the only obstacles really are how much money is going to be offered and generated. And we know we've had financial offers, so we know it's for both guys. This fight is huge in comparison to all the other options for them. And I'm not saying the money's not a consideration for AJ, but this is the fight he wants, right? So he trusts us to go out with 258 and his team to do the right deal in the right territory. But ultimately, as he said to me last night, I'll do this in your garden. I want to fight him. I want those belts. This is bigger than just who's going to pay the most money for AJ. Now, I appreciate for Fury, maybe it's different, and he's entitled to do that. So we'll present the best opportunities for both guys. But
what's good, family? Shout out to my General GM Williams for sponsoring man on the Patreon. So, we just heard there from Eddie Hearn. Unfortunately, putting the final nail in the coffin of Fury versus AJ, or rather, the likelihood of Fury versus AJ happening. The rundown over the last little while has been, over the last 3 months that the negotiations have been going on for, has been Eddie Hearn, Team AJ have been extremely positive. Everything they've said has been extremely positive. Team Fury, their side of things, extremely negative. That changed today. Now, we've got Eddie Hearn, finally, and rightfully so, leaking slowly. He hasn't blatantly come out and said, Fury's bottling it, but he's slowly changing that narrative now. It's not all gravy trains. It's not all happy. It's going to happen. It's all on. I'm 1,000% sure. Now, slowly the truth's coming out, and rightly so. This was timed perfectly. You don't want to rock the boat too early. And he hasn't blatantly rocked the boat, but now, for deep people like the YB and all of his dons, we can read between the lines as we're about to do here and see what Eddie Hearn's saying and see how he's exposing Team Fury for what's really going on behind the scenes. We know Eddie Hearn can't come out and say Fury's dropped his pen and lost his pen, but there's subtle hints in there, in the clips you've heard, that's going to expose all, or already has exposed all of what's really going on. So, let's take it from the top. And actually, before we take the quotes that Eddie Hearn said from the top, during this interview, and we're going to cover this in the main on another video, but during this interview, Eddie Hearn reveals the true reason that he made the announcement on Monday about the thing being signed. He says, boom, the reason I'm coming out is to tell the truth. Me and Team AJ have always told the truth. We don't want to do it all in the dark. And again, why that's smart and why he's doing that now is because things behind the scenes are getting a little rocky. What you don't want to do is end up getting caught lacking like the Wilder and Fury situation. Wilder and Fury 3. Look how messy and dark and misty that is. No one knows what's going on. Was it Fury who didn't want it and bottled it? There's evidence saying possibly yes. Was it Wilder who didn't want it and bottled it? There's evidence saying yes. Was it both of them not really that bothered? There's evidence saying yes. Misty as you like. Why is Wilder and Fury 3 all misty over the last year? No one came out. They all sat there, lawyered up or whatever. They all sat there and sat on their hands. Eddie Hearn and Team AJ have learned public disclosure. When you want a fight, is your best friend. You don't want to be caught in a situation where you've sat down and said nothing. Because when it doesn't happen, it's he said, she said. At least when you've got a bit of a paper trail, for example, look at the Luis Ortiz situation. Eddie Hearn put the paper trail. Boom. And they was happy to say Eddie Hearn was a liar. They was happy to leave the narrative out there, Eddie Hearn's a liar. It wasn't until Eddie Hearn dropped the receipts that they had to backtrack and apologise. So now, building that into what's going on now, Eddie Hearn said, boom, and we're going to cover this in its own video, but just quickly to set the scene. Eddie Hearn said, the reason I dropped the sign, the reason I publicly came out, against Bob Arum, by the way, Bob Arum said, oh, keep it hushed down, keep it quiet. Bob Arum's been complaining Eddie Hearn talks too much. Oh, isn't that interesting? For the first time, Mr. Big Mouth Bob Arum is worried about people talking. And this is another thing, another implication, or another sign that there's something fishy going on with Team Fury. Mr. Big Mouth Bob Arum all of a sudden wants everything quiet. Do you want the fight or not? People who want the fight can go onto a hill, get their wiggy out and spin in the air and scream all the details. It doesn't matter. No matter what happens, we're doing the fight. So who cares who says what and when? If you want it and we want it, what difference it make? The reason why certain people want things quiet and private is because they're not confident in their man. And when it doesn't happen, they want to be able to hide behind the mystery. Look at the Fury and Wilder situation again. Both teams, as fans, we ain't got a clue who did or didn't want it, but both teams are happy hiding behind it. Neither was public about what was going on at the time, and the fans are none the wiser. He said, she said. And Team AJ want this fight. They don't want to be in that situation where this deal expires in 28 days, which I think it will, and then it's he said, she said, and it's all mysterious, and Fury's talking about, well, it's the venues and whatnot. Eddie Hearn today has come out and said, we've had big offers, great offers, proving that AJ is happy to take them. And just quickly on that basis, we know AJ is happy to take X amount, 50%, no matter what, and that's what's been signed at this point in time. Fury and AJ have signed on 50-50. AJ's happy to take whatever that 50-50 is, and I believe that based on the evidence that we've seen of AJ's career. Look at his career. When has anyone ever helped AJ out in a negotiation? When have they said, you know what, AJ, I'll make this concession? When? AJ versus Wilder. AJ had to come down to Wilder. AJ, who started at 80-20, ended up on 50-50, just begging to get that fight. Same as AJ versus Fury. Begging to get that fight. 50, straight down to 50-50. When has anyone ever done the same for him? So that's how, for all the people out there who say, YB, what are you talking about? The things Eddie Hearn said, how do we know? It's just, why are you putting it all on Tyson Fury? Well, we can remove AJ from the equation. So when Eddie Hearn says, like the clip I played at the start of the video, when Eddie Hearn says, it all depends how happy the fighters are. We've had big offers, but ultimately it all depends on how happy the fighters are. We know he's not talking about AJ there. I've explained why. I've just explained how we know that. Number one, Eddie Hearn knows his man. Number two, we know AJ is going to be happy with the financial conditions of whatever big offers they are. So when Eddie Hearn says, oh yeah, people are skeptical of the fight, we've had some big offers, but ultimately it all depends on how happy the fighters are. He's not really meaning fighters. What he's saying is we've had big offers, but ultimately it comes down to whether Fury is happy or not. He can't come out and really air Fury out, but people who are deep, like the YB's Dons, we can read between the lines here and see, boom, like I'm doing now, boom, airing it out to you, man. This is Eddie's little, listen, you man, like them cute anal things, this is the white rabbit, follow the white rabbit, yeah, this is what that is. Eddie Hearn saying, follow the white rabbit. If this doesn't happen, we've had big offers, but it depends how happy the fighters are. Let me translate that for you. We've had big offers, but it depends how happy Tyson Fury is. Which is basically saying, at this point in time, I'm not sure. I haven't got full confidence that Tyson Fury is happy at the offers we're getting. Or certainly, it's not about the offers, is it? It's about him just making an excuse. But end of the day, Eddie Hearn's saying that Fury is basically, in so many words, in another time where people weren't so sensitive, and where it wouldn't give, because in normal times, yeah, Eddie Hearn would come out and say, listen, we just got a $100 million offer from somewhere, and Tyson Fury is saying he wants more. That's what would happen normally, but he can't do that, because if he says that, Tyson Fury will come out and say, oh, Eddie Hearn, you're a liar, and I'm done with this fight. Eddie Hearn's a rat Eddie Hearn's a snake. Eddie Hearn's just a big mouth. Fast car Eddie's lying again, and we're out of this place. Just like what Deontay Wilder did. So Eddie has to be subtle now. But again, like I said at the start of the video, notice the change here. It's not the same. Before, Eddie was banging the drum. Oh, it's all great. It's all going great. This fight's going to be locked in 2 days. Now Eddie's saying, yeah, we've got big offers, but ultimately it comes down to how happy the fighters are. That's nothing to do with AJ. We can remove him. And not because I'm biased. If I thought genuinely it was 50-50 about AJ, I'd include him, but it's not. We've got the proof. Historically, we can prove that. He wants it. If AJ was worried about just making money, he could just keep fighting the low-risk fights and carrying on. Fight Usyk next. The fact AJ's begging for this fight, and he's mentioned no one else. No one else has been mentioned. Eddie Hearn had to do his tricks with the WBO to mug Usyk off to do this fight. Eddie Hearn and AJ could have pulled a Deontay Wilder and told the WBO to mandate Usyk and just ran off and fought the mandatory, like Wilder did, instead of fighting Dillian White 4 times. That didn't happen. Meanwhile, Fury, for example, Mr. Fury, who's not happy with 100 million, fighting AJ, all of a sudden he's talking about, I'm going to have 2 warm-up fights anyway. Madness. I've heard more detail about Fury fighting Wilder again, or Fury fighting 2 warm-up fights, or 2 random bums this year, than I have about the AJ fight. Isn't that amazing? Haven't heard no confidence about the AJ fight, but we've heard about, I'm going to have 2 fights this year anyway, and one of them might be Wilder. Where's that same level of detail in terms of the AJ stuff? Anyway, back to Eddie Hearn's expose. Back to Eddie Hearn's anal White Rabbit expose of Fury. So that's the first red flag that Hearn put out there. Yeah, I spoke to Hearn. Hearn said, YB, break what I said down and expose the White Rabbit to all the man there. So that's what we're doing right now. Boom. Eddie Hearn. We've got big offers in, but whether the fight happens or not comes down to how happy the fighters are. I've explained what that really means. The next thing Eddie Hearn says, we will present the big offers to the fighters, and we will present the offers to the fighters, but it's fair to say people would rather wait until after the C19. People would rather wait until after C19. Who's he talking about there? Because we know AJ won it in June. AJ wanted it locked in from June. AJ said back in December, I want this done by the end of the month. That's another thing. Look at the difference there. AJ giving dates, and that wasn't a throwaway. This was December 12th at the time. AJ said, Eddie, I want this done by December. And that's how AJ's team really works, seriously. And that's another big red flag. AJ's team genuinely could have got this wrapped up in 3 weeks, no problem, if Fury's team were on board. This whole 3 months thing is ridiculous. Just think about how negotiations work. You get on the phone, you bang it out. It doesn't take 3 months, unless there's problems, unless people are being slow purposefully. Because eventually it's going to get to the point where it's so late. Oh, well, another year tick by. Oh, well, it's May now, can't train. It's got all that kind of weird stuff. You know what they're like, they love stretching things out. The more time it takes, the more people get tired of it and whatnot. And Fury himself has dragged it out so long, he's now using his own excuse. Oh, well, I've dragged it out for 3 months and now I'm bored and tired of it. What? You know what I mean? You're the one who's dragged it out. AJ wanted it wrapped up in end of December. And I believe it could have been wrapped up. But the fact that Eddie Hearn mentioned here about people would rather wait until after. There's probably more money after C19. Who is that? Who's been saying that? Who didn't fight Wilder because of C19? Because there's more fans and more money. Fury came on TV and said, well, I'm not going to fight Wilder because we want to wait until there's fans because it's more money. This fight's too big to happen without fans and without more money. That's what he said. So now we're hearing the same things again. Eddie Hearn's leaking it. There are people in this group who would rather, Eddie Hearn says something along them lines, there are people in this group who would rather wait until after C19. And we know that anyway, because that's nothing new. Fury's been saying that. And the fact that links in with what Fury's been saying, oh, well, if this fight don't happen, it'll probably be because of C19. It'll probably be because of venues. He's already told us. And now Eddie Hearn's confirming. There's people in the group who would rather wait until after. And it'll make more money. It'll probably make more money after as well. All these things are the things we've heard from Fury. So we've got Eddie starting off questioning the fighters, i.e. Fury, about whether they're going to be happy with the offers or not. What do we know about Fury? Saying exactly the same thing. Oh, I need more money. All I know is I'm going to have a whole lot of money in my pocket. John Fury saying he's going to need 400 million in his pocket. So the two key issues that Fury's used himself, venue, C19, and the money, both of them Eddie Hearn's now confirmed are an issue from Fury's point of view. Anyway, Eddie goes on to say, the only obstacles is going to be how much money is offered. From AJ's point of view, money isn't an issue. He'll fight in the garden. But I appreciate it may be different for Fury. But we'll still do our best. Wow. What more can you say? He literally spelt it out. For the people who didn't get the first one, the first White Rabbit, Eddie threw the QAnal stuff away and came straight out with it. Yeah? The only obstacles we have is how much money will be offered. AJ isn't bothered about the money. However, I appreciate it may be different for Fury. Now, Eddie Hearn said, oh, it may be different for Fury. But, again, we can read between the lines. It is different for Fury. He's told us so. Yeah? It's not... I'm sorry, I don't believe it's a coincidence. If Eddie Hearn has not mentioned any negative words. No mention of some people wanting it later. No mention of Fury the money may not be good enough for Fury. It's all been, yeah, it's great. Listen, it was only a month ago we was told it was going to be done, all wrapped up, wasn't it? Let's get something straight here. It was only in January we were being told that this whole thing, not the initial contract, we were being told the whole lot was going to be wrapped up in by the end of January, wasn't it? Eddie Hearn didn't say, oh, we're going to get the preliminary thing signed in March. He said the whole thing will be wrapped in January. And I believe that's because he thought that. And every delay since is clearly Fury's team dragging it out. And anyway, now Eddie Hearn's changed. We're no longer hearing, oh, it's going to be done in a week. We're now hearing, yeah, we're getting offers, but Fury, they may not be acceptable to Fury. Eddie Hearn's reaching out now. He's speaking without speaking. Fury has problems with the money. Eddie Hearn's not sure Fury's happy with the money. Or not confident. Eddie Hearn's not confident Fury's going to be happy with the money. Eddie Hearn's not confident Team Fury want this fight now in Q2. They think it'll be better afterwards, which fits their narrative perfectly. Exactly why they didn't fight the whole of 2020 and they sat around inactive. For me, again, it's just too coincidental. We hear from Fury moaning about the money. We hear from Fury moaning about the venue and the C19. And now Eddie Hearn's saying the exact same things, questioning the same things. Oh, I'm not sure Fury's going to be happy with the money. I'm not sure Team Fury... I think some members of Team Fury would rather wait until after. Some members of our group, or some members of the negotiation would rather wait until after. Listen, am I clutching at straws here? Or am I calling a spade a spade? I think I'm calling a spade a spade. Honestly, it's amazing. Never seen anything like it. For this narrative, it's not once or twice. Fury on several occasions now. Money, 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 money. Venue, 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 venue. C19, C19, C19. And then boom, Eddie Hearn comes out and confirms our worst fears. And that's why I started the video saying the final nail's been hammered in now. Because before, Eddie Hearn was going with the route of just pure optimism, pure hope. That bubble's been pricked. The reality's setting in. Or rather, Eddie Hearn's changing the strategy now. Eddie Hearn was desperate to make this fight and he thought the best way to do it is to lubricate. Which he did. But now it's almost like damage limitation. We don't want to get caught like Wilder did. Or we don't want to end up in Wilder versus Fury 3. Where both teams said nothing. Both teams set no hints. And it's all a big mess and it's he said, she said. At least now, yeah. When it doesn't happen, do you know what will happen a month from now? A month from now, Eddie Hearn will say, when it doesn't happen, Eddie Hearn will say, don't you remember the interview I told you? I told you certain members wanted to do it later. I told you I wasn't sure whether whether it will be acceptable to Tyson Fury, whether the offers were going to be good enough for Tyson Fury. The scene's been set now. He's done it subtle. He's done it in a subtle way, a smart way. But nonetheless, it's been done. That's not a week ago. Eddie Hearn would have been saying, "Oh, it's going to be done in a week." Not, yeah, we've got big offers, but Fury might not be happy. And yeah, we've got big offers, but some people of the group would rather do it afterwards. It's as simple as that. The bubble's been pricked, and rightly so. This is how you stay sharp. Eddie Hearn came out and said, "Boom, we're not keeping things in the dark. Team Fury want to do that because they want to hide under it, like Bane on some Bane thing. Oh, I was born in the dark, raised in it, all that goofy kind of business. This ain't no Bane thing. This is get in there and get it on. This ain't no, you know what I'm saying? All that, giving it to Bane, giving it to Batman thing. It's not one of them ones. Just get in there and fight. Try and give it to Bane.